network television to natural disasters, questions are being raised about the reliability of the nation's electrical grid. Superstorm Sandy left millions without power for days in New York and New Jersey. And the new TV series Revolution is just plain scaring people with a not-too-distant future in which the power goes out all around the world. Well, the reality and the fiction of all of this is front and center at the University of Pittsburgh, which is home to the Swanson School of Engineering Center for Energy. Pitt recently wrapped up its annual Electric Power Industry Conference, and Greg Reed is back with us. He's Director and Associate Professor of the Electric Power Initiative within the Center for Energy. And welcome back. Good to see you again.
Thanks, Bill. Good to see you.
Yeah, congratulations. This whole annual conference has been really building the interest in it.
It absolutely has. We've had a tremendous response to it year after year. This was our 7th annual conference. We had a tremendous lineup of speakers from industry, from government, from academia, and our keynotes were tremendous. We had Dr. John Swanson, our school's namesake, who talked about solar energy development, and Dan Moat Jr., who is the president-elect of the National Academy of Engineering, addressed our students for our evening networking session. So it was another tremendous success. We had a great turnout, a lot of industry participation, and great opportunities for those companies and our students to interact with each other.
Really is a demand, right, for people with this power engineering expertise? I understand there's a shortage of that kind of talent.
Absolutely. We're poised to lose about 50% of the technical workforce in the electric power industry over the next 10 years or so.
50%?
Absolutely. And so we have a lot of work to do to educate a next generation of engineers, and we're doing that, you know, here at the University of Pittsburgh, and making a big contribution to not only the region but the national need for more engineers that are properly trained for today's challenges in the electric power industry, because they're different than they were even a decade ago.
Well, you know, it's been something, I know you've been beating this drum for years, and Pitt's been at it, and within the industry it's a concern. It seems to be finally breaking out into popular culture, but you know, unfortunately, as a result of the natural disasters, Superstorm Sandy and what happened in New York and New Jersey, I mean, what does that really tell us about some of the challenges we have with the grid? Well,
that's a great question, and you're right. It's when these disasters happen that the understanding of the importance of electricity and electric power come to the forefront. Otherwise, we tend to not really appreciate it or think about it too much. But when this happens and we see the impacts of it, not only the hardships of people being inconvenienced and without power for a long time and beyond just inconveniences, but the economic impact, we start to realize that we have some vulnerability. And you know, there is a lot that needs to be done in modernize an aging grid. You know, as we've talked about before on this program, it's an infrastructure that much of it is well over a half a century old, relies on very old technologies. We need to modernize it, we need to upgrade it, and we need to make it more resilient to these types of occurrences, because what we're seeing is a higher frequency of disasters and occurrences or situations like what are caused by Sandy and Irene before that and Katrina before that. So we need to do a better job in terms of our infrastructure upgrade, both in terms of the physical infrastructure as well as the cyber infrastructure, and how we really start to harden that.
I mean, we're really dependent on moving electricity over long distances and power lines strung from poles into houses, and man, that's all vulnerable to wind and rain and storms and snow and everything else.
Everything,
right?
Everything. And so part of the solution is to start to look at where it's strategically really justifiable to begin to go underground. Now, we know that underground costs more, but today we have technologies that make that much more viable. Moving towards more DC infrastructure as opposed to AC, and implementing power electronics controllers to help that conversion from DC to AC allows us to put more of the infrastructure underground. And what's important with that is it increases the resiliency and reduces the amount of outage time that we would have when these things happen. But it also increases the overall reliability and efficiency of the network. A lot of the problems we also have with expanding the network is nobody wants power lines in their backyard. We have the NIMBY issue. So if we can put more of it underground and take advantage of technologies that allow us to deliver more over those corridors, we can do a much better job of improving the performance and operational capability of the grid. What's great about DC is that in a given corridor, we can actually move as much as 6 to 8 times more power than a traditional AC network. So it has a lot of advantages. There are a lot of challenges to that as well, and it's not just cost. We also have to overcome some of the technological issues associated with it. But that's why we do our research.
That's why you're in business. Jobs for Greg Reed and his graduate students.
Absolutely.
I've got to ask you about the TV series, though. I know when the series Revolution premiered, my wife said, she asked me, could that really happen? And I said, well, I don't think so, but I'll ask Greg Reed at Pitt, because he may know whether all the lights around the world could all go off at the same time.
Well, no, not quite, because we're not completely interconnected across the globe. I mean, certainly we've seen large sections of the lights go out in parts of this country. We just had the big India blackout that occurred, where so many millions of people and so much of their infrastructure went down. So in pockets it can certainly happen, but we're not completely integrated across the globe. But one of the things from that show that I think is important is it does point out the dependence we have today in modern society on electricity. It's the lifeblood of our modern economy and our way of life. And as the show starts out, I haven't really watched it that much, but I did see the first episode. They start out by going back to a primitive way of life. And without electricity, that's still where we would be, quite honestly.
Tremendous thought leadership happening here in our region. I should mention, we only have a few seconds left, but it has not gone unnoticed by the National Academies of Science and Engineering. They're literally launching a new energy ambassador program here in our region.
That's right. It's very exciting. The National Academies of Science and Engineering benchmark a number of cities across the nation to really launch this program. And the idea behind it is to work with regional companies and universities, people who understand the issues about energy, and begin to communicate that out to the community. So our objectives are really to educate thought leaders, business leaders, community leaders, everyone from the business sectors to parents of school children, all the way down to those school children, about the importance of energy and what it means in everyday life, and try to link the importance of technology, engineering, and science to what we depend on in everyday life. And in fact, one of the things that we're doing at Pitt with that is very exciting. My graduate students and I are developing a middle school curriculum on an introduction to energy and electricity that we're going to be piloting this coming spring with Aquinas Academy in Gibsonia.
Wow, very exciting. Well, the more we can get kids turned on to this challenging problem, because it's a big one, the better the shot we have in solving it. Greg Reed from the Swanson School at the University of Pittsburgh, thanks so much.
Thanks, Bill. It's always a pleasure.
Next up, We Chi, a new approach to altruism online that's invented by one of our region's native sons. We'll meet him when our region's business continues.